when I retired from the public sector 10 years ago, set up my own consultancy, and I moved also into haulage because there's more money there, believe it or not, than the passenger. Passengers, there's just nothing. So I'm an external transport manager for a passenger transport operator. However, and also a road haulage operator. Yeah, just small ones. They do me. The passenger one, they've had no revenue flow since March 2020. I've written to the commissioner, let them know that I'm not even invoicing them, and they're quite happy with that. But I'm still on the license. They're not doing anything. They're on the, laid up. I'm involved an awful lot with consultancy. I do a lot of work for quite a few organizations. Up till last October, I was the examiner for the CILT Transport Manager exams. But I've moved on now. I deliver the blended learning for them, and I do it for a number of other organizations as well. Logistics UK, Invergold, DriveTech. I do the FORS auditing, earned recognition scheme auditing, do an awful lot of education side right up to level 3, which would be supply chain management, humanitarian logistics. And I've experienced in the past also putting people through for master's degrees. I was a dissertation supervisor. And be quite honest with you, gentlemen, I'm assuming it's all gentlemen here, yes. Anywhere there's a check at the end of the day, I'll be sniffing about, so that's me. Okay. And I've got 2 university degrees and 1 on the way. My master's degree is in passenger transport management. I'm just finished up an MBA on leadership. That's me. Okay, thank you.
Very
well, I'm not dissimilar to that, Kieran. I also worked in the public centre service with the Ministry of Defence as a driver and then subsequently transport manager. I kind of left there a few years back, went into the private sector and get fed up with that. A couple of years ago, set up my own consultancy business, dabble in a bit of training, have helped Martin's company out, do FORS training, FORS audits as well, and a bit of external transport management. That's me.
My name's Martin, Class 1 ADR driver, and I manage 21 vehicles. As John said, he originally got us to the goal, and I sort of maintain it now. We're based in South East England, and we specialise in sort of Moffat deliveries in and around London and in and around the UK. I manage 21 vehicles, just trying to keep them compliant, really. And Graham?
I'm external transport manager on 3 licenses plus an application pending. I'm also doing FORS administration for one of those, and I'd like to get into FORS auditing if possible. If either Kieran or John could possibly point me in the right direction.
Sure, we could do that.
Good, appreciate it.
We've got next, John.
Hi. I started as an internal transport manager for a number of years, and then in 2018 I started external transport manager in a part-time basis alongside a health and safety advisor role. And then at the start of this year I've gone full-time external transport manager, currently on 3 licenses with 1 pending application just now. And yeah, that's me.
Got Daniel.
Hi everyone, I am internal transport manager running 60 passenger transport vehicles in Leeds. It's a company called Tetley's Motor Services. I'm also qualified in HGV. I've also got my HGV CPC, which I passed last year, just in case, passenger transport never recovered from the pandemic. Luckily, last few weeks, business has really started to pick up, so we're extremely busy now.
Good.
Excellent. We've got Thomas. We've got a microphone.
Oh, hi. I just passed my exam in March, and I got like now 2 applications as external transport manager. It will be like only 1 track on each application, but I think one guy tried to expand. So basically I joined, to get some information how to run the external transport manager business.
Okay.
Because I just started, yeah.
So what exam did you take? Was it the OCR or the CIL? OCR. You did take an OCR exam.
Yeah.
Okay. Richard. See if Richard might not have a microphone. Let's have a look. I don't think he does. Let's see who's in the chat. Who we got now? John. Struggling to get to Apple Mac. So John's struggling with his Apple Mac at the moment. I've got the last one, Nia.
Hi, I wasn't expecting we had to talk. Okay, so I'm Nia. I'm an external transport manager just for one company. We've got 5 vehicles, 6 trailers. I only passed the year before last, and we started up last year. So very new, learning the ropes. The whole year that I'm working for, he's literally only just started up at the same time. So we're both like the blind leading the blind. No, we're doing all right. Yeah, he's got grown from 1 vehicle to 5 vehicles in that year. So yeah, we're doing okay. I also, that's my, like, I do it obviously on the side. I've got a full-time job as well. So nothing related, it's purchasing. So bit of a change.
Definitely, yeah. Are you enjoying it?
Yes, yeah, I do enjoy it.
Bit of hesitation.
I'm finding quite difficult. Sorry?
There's a bit of hesitation there.
Yeah. No, it's the sheer volume of work at the minute. I think trying to get everything set up. Obviously, I'm just setting it up from nothing. So just trying to work out the quickest ways to do things, and the policies and everything like that. So, but yeah, it's all I've ever wanted to do. So yeah, it's definitely the right way.
Great stuff. Does anyone have any sort of guides or anything they do on a daily basis that they could teach other people? When I was brought into transport management, I was a class 1 driver. I did my transport manager's course because I felt that I could do a better job than my transport manager at the time, who had actually failed the exam, believe it or not. And I was sick and tired of following these rules that I knew wasn't correct. So when I moved to the company now, I had no real hands-on transport manager experience, and I had to sort of pick things up and teach myself sort of routines and the way you check things and intervals of checking. And I've always wondered if people have some sort of schedule of how they run the transport side of things. That was the reason why I called this sort of meeting today, really, to see if anyone else had any sort of schedules, I suppose, of how they run.
What I use, Martin, and I use it in the training too when that comes about, is I use a spreadsheet. I try and keep it as simple as possible, and it's the forward planner, which is also your history. But in that, I will have a lot more than just your you can have your maintenance and your maintenance reports when they come through, your MOT and your tachograph. I have about 8 or 9 categories in there. So everything, I've compartmentalized everything into 2 areas, vehicles and drivers. And it's just straightforward, simple. With the drivers, it's what they should be doing, all the training records, all compartmentalized into those 2 areas. And if you do that, you're 99% of the way there. I've got 40 odd years now between driving, all the way from driving right up to compliance management, to my own consultancy. And the one thing that worries me, and you often see it on some of our transport manager Facebook groups, is the experts. I think we're all experts, but at the same time, I'm constantly learning. Okay. Every one of us is constantly learning. If you're not, and you think you're an expert, you're the expert of everything, you've got a problem. That's when you have the problem.
Every day's a school day, Kieran.
Yeah, absolutely. I did an audit for the traffic commissioners on a company Thursday, and that was very different from the one I did. The last one I did was September, for the traffic commissioner one, completely different. And it was learning in there, and there was things I'm picking up, and everybody should be recognizing their own situation as that. I'm not an expert, but I want to learn, and I can learn. And as soon as you stop learning, you finish. There's something wrong, something gonna miss.
One thing, if I may add, I've done probably between 40 and 50 FORS audits in the last 5 months or so. And the one thing that I pick up on, not every audit is the same, and the majority of the companies have the policies and the procedures and the documentation, like risk assessments and the license checks and the tachograph records. They have them in place. But as Kieran pointed out, they don't have them in one place. They've got them dotted all over the place. And one of the things that I tried to say to the members, the FORS members that I'm auditing, I struggle to get the information out of them because they can't find it, whether it be hard copies or electronic copies of documents. And what I tried to say to them is advise them to get everything into one place, because it's easier to monitor it then. Because we all know what it's like with files and paperwork. Right, I've put that. Where have I put that file? But if you have, I've got a couple of spreadsheets, and again, very similar to Kieran. I've got all my vehicles. I've got my vehicle list. I've got all the vehicle details. I've got the MOT dates, tachograph calibration dates, etc., on one sheet, just so that I can instantly see it. I've then, in a separate tab in the same workbook, Excel workbook, I've got all the maintenance planner. Again, nice and easy. It's got the weeks across the top. And if you haven't used a maintenance planner before, I would certainly recommend that the first thing you do is make sure you've got the ISO week numbers across the top, because you can count nice and quickly how many weeks are between each inspection. And then I've got all the drivers with all their license details, when the license expires, when the photo card expires, because it can be 2 different dates, bear in mind. Some people do get caught out with that. And I've got all the CPC details, and Martin, you've seen the matrix that I use. And it just makes it that little bit easier if you know where to find the files. And that's the single biggest bit of advice I would give to any new starter.
Yeah, I would say, like John said, the spreadsheet he's got that obviously he used with us, we still use to this day, and it's so easy to see. I can easily tell whose license is about to run out, or whose CPC card is about to run out, because these drivers, what I've noticed, these drivers half the time don't realise it's run out, or don't realise it's run out, and I have to chase these people. You do know your tacho card is going to run out in a month, for example. Have you applied for a new one? Your driver license is going to run out in a month. Have you applied for a new one? And they quite happily carry on what they're doing, and then realise their license has run out. It's crazy. I've
actually got a bit of an issue with that. I've got an issue with that this week. So I've been mentioning to one driver that his driving license is due to expire, and I can't even find out. Well, until it was due to run out on the 12th, and he wouldn't confirm whether he'd renewed it or not. And I'm guessing he's at the age now where he needs the medical. And at the minute, I'm not going to let him drive, because he can't prove to me that he sent that form off to DVLA.
If he can't prove it, then chances are he hasn't.
Well, that's the worry. But is there any way that because obviously you do the license checks and it doesn't actually say, because it's so close to the 12th. Is there any way that we can check? Like, I've tried to ring them, but there's no answer with DVLA, and I'm not sure they'd even tell me anyway. But
if I would suggest me in a situation like that, what struck me most was that he wasn't prepared to confirm to you. And that's all about attitude. And if that's the guy's attitude, I would actually suspend him on full pay And then you start your investigation, not necessarily about whether he's licensed to drive, but it's just the attitude.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You know,
I agree.
And take it down that route in the disciplinary, because you don't want people like that in your business.
No.
Because he is a threat to your ability as an operator to actually to deliver to your customers.
Exactly. He is only a casual driver, and yeah, he is. His attitude, it's what's concerned me more than anything is. There's not really a worry about it, and why are you chasing me for something like this? It's not important.
All the more reason just to turn around the next time you see him, or send him a text and say, sorry, we're not going to use you again, don't bother coming back in.
Yeah, no,
because he's only casual.
Yeah.
You know, because these guys have got to understand that it's not just their livelihood, it's everybody in the transport operations livelihood.
Yeah. So so at the minute, until how would you guys expect, I haven't been in this position before, but how, I guess usually the drivers would probably renew them a bit sooner than, I think he sent it off a week or two before it was due to expire. But have you been in a position where it's been so close that they haven't had their license back? Because I know they're allowed to drive while DVLA are working through it, but from my point of view, I want to see some sort of proof that is with DVLA, because for all I know, he could be just saying that just so he can get the work.
Well, I actually had one recently. I had a driver, and I kept saying to him, you need to renew your license, you need to renew your license. And he was claiming he sent it off, but for whatever reason, it never arrived. And I said, well, you should have applied for this 3 months ago when I told you about it. Anyway, so it got to the point when I said to my manager, look, this person can't drive no more, his license has run out. What he can do is he can go online onto the government website and produce a code for me to look up his license. And on there, it did say that he'd applied for it and it had been done. He hadn't received it, so you can get a sheet there which will confirm the vehicles he can drive. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's got any endorsements on it. It's like a manual license check that you can do.
That's what I've done for. Yeah,
that's it. And then that told me that he whether he'd received it or not, he had got another 5 years on his license. Whether legal allowed to drive, and he kept a copy of that on him until he got his new card, and I kept a copy of that in his personnel file.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So it hasn't got to that stage yet. So maybe. Yeah. Okay. Fab. Thank you. He's not going to drive until I get that.
Yeah, I mean, for people who haven't renewed their license, their livelihood is...
Well, exactly, yeah. Why leave it to last minute?
I mean, when I was driving, I knew exactly when my card ran out, and I had another card before it sort of had run out. It's without that card, you're not earning, are you?
No, exactly. Thank you.
I find once you go over a certain threshold with the number of vehicles, you're as well outsourcing it. It is actually cheaper for you to do it and have somebody sitting over watching the drivers, where they can have an automated system. It'll cost you a few pounds a month, a few pounds a year per driver.
It's the same license bureau.
Yeah, license bureau. Yeah, it's the same with the driver training. That's one I'm picking up a lot, and I guess John would be the same. John Martin would be the same. Especially with Toolbox Talks, they're not documenting it. They're not saying, the drivers had safe loading training. Well, they are saying it, but they don't have anything to sign off. So there are bureaus out there they do apps for the phones, which works out really cost effective. And you get an online update of what they do. So DVSA come in and you can actually look at that. I'll post something on our Facebook group later on that.
Are the phone app ones any good? Or, I mean, normally when we do a Toolbox Talk, we make it specific to the actual operation. Are these generic? Are they?
They are generic, but it depends on the size of the operation. If you have a really big operation, they will do specific ones, bespoke ones to it. But what it does is you can still give your own Toolbox Talks. I do this with one company I'm an external transport manager for. I still deliver my own Toolbox Talks. But once on the phone, the driver's got to do a knowledge check at the end of it. So you know that if he's attempted it, or if he's not attempted it, he's read it, not attempted. So it will give you a good a good feedback on that, you know. So it takes an awful lot of the pressure, you know, the admin chasing around. You know what it's like chasing up drivers, you know. You can be, they've got loads of things in their mind. We have loads of things in our mind. And so. Yeah.
What app's that, Kieran?
I beg your pardon?
What app is that you use?
That would be Road Skills I'm using. It's one from Road Skills. They're pretty good. I can give you the details. I'll share the details with you if you want that. Okay. Or contact me just.
David Summers.
David, yes, David, good friend of mine. Yep. So if you just send me a message, even just a chat on the chat there, and I can make a note of it, and I'll send me your phone number. Just send me your phone number, and I'll send you back the details on that. Okay.
I've got all your details through Charlie at Invergold as well.
Charlie, yes. He keeps us busy, but I've never got paid. I never got any paid work from him yet. You know, he's just.
I've only just started working for him, so. Well,
I'll say work with in inverted commas. You know, I've signed up with him months ago, but I've yet to get any work out of him. You know. But
Travis Perkins used that. I don't know if it's Road Skills, but they use the same sort of thing where they have their PDAs and they do the vehicle checks, and then they'll have some sort of toolbox talk come up on their PDA that they've then got to go through and sign off and do a quick knowledge test at the end of it.
Yeah, the Road Skills ones are quite basic, but what I like about it, I don't use them personally, but I've got access to the package, and I kind of look at them myself. So the actual Toolbox Talks are all kind of video based, and then there'll be 5 multiple choice questions at the end of that, and they're sent out to the drivers electronically by email, however frequently you want them to be. I think it's monthly.
Monthly.
So you can, so your drivers will get one once a month, and it will literally take them 10 to 15 minutes. But what it does is it takes away all the complete ball ache of having to get everybody in a room, stand there with multiple sheets of paper, an attendance record, and getting them all to sign that kind of stuff. And all they do is they do it online, and the management team have access to a portal dashboard, so you can see who's completed what and when they've completed it. And it just takes the heartache out of it, so that when it does come to things like audits, whether it be DVSA or FORS audits, you've got instant access to electronic records and evidence and proof that the Toolbox Talks have actually been completed.
What's the cost for this?
I think with David, it's not a lot of money. It's something like £2 a month or something like that per driver. I might be doing him an injustice. It might be less than that.
I'll be something worth looking into that for sure.
It's a good system, and for any of you other guys out there, and again, I don't know everybody's knowledge in terms of FORS, but if any of you are FORS members and you've got access to the FORS website, there's a dozen PowerPoint Toolbox Talks available on the FORS website as well. And all relevant topics to transport operation. And of course, they are editable, so you can chop and change them to suit your individual operation.
So I've used them before, all the FORS Toolbox Talks. So yeah, I can vouch for that. So they are pretty good. Yeah. Does anyone have any sort of timescales for infringements? I do my infringements every Monday morning when I get to work. I'll download every infringement for that week. I'll get my drivers to download their cards every day, as much as possible. Certainly every other day, every 2 to 3 days, depending on their into. Does anyone have any? Does anyone leave it any longer? Do you leave it 2-3 weeks before you look at infringements, or do you leave it? What would you do?
For me, I debrief weekly. So when we download the cards, we have a look to see what's there. Just a verbal debrief, just to have a chat with the driver. And then at month end, when we generate all the other reports, they'll come through, and that's when we go back to the driver and do the official sign off. More so just because we don't get that very many infringements. The odd one we get, I'd rather just wait till the end of the month, catch everything. But I speak to him weekly just to make sure it's fresh in the driver's head, as you're not waiting at the end of the month thinking, well, what happened 27 days ago or 28 days ago, and he's struggling to remember. So I speak weekly and then official sign off at the end of the month.
Yeah,
Can I come in? If I may come in here, currently I have an owner operator who's committing the same infringement week in, week out. He's foreign. He's not understanding the maximum duty time regulation. He's regularly every week he goes over the 11 hours. I've sent in 3 infringement letters now. At what point do I have the right to insist that he goes on a driver's hours course?
I think I would have done it already, Graham.
Right. Okay.
If it's as bad as that.
Is that a communication thing? Is it actual knowing the regulations, or is it the communication part, trying to actually explain to him what the problem is? If it's the communication, then that's a different matter.
No, I think he has a problem understanding the regulation. I don't think.
So is it? Sorry for butting in, Graham. Are we talking about duty time under EU regs, or are we looking at working time?
No, we're talking about working time, because he's not working abroad. He's working entirely in this country, even though he's an EU national. He's working entirely in this country.
Yeah.
And he regularly goes over 11 hours duty time.
But he can go over 11 hours, can't he?
Yeah.
You could do a maximum of 15.
Yeah.
Now, he can do a 15-hour working day from start to finish, but that's got to incorporate 4 hours rest. He's doing over 11 hours of actual work, combined driving time and other duties.
I think, is that a domestic rules regulation?
That's what I was going to ask.
I think
Yeah,
wait, is your analysis software, what are you using for your analysis? Because I think if it's set up for domestic rules, it might flag as infringement, but I'm pretty sure that's a domestic rules infringement, not an EU rules one.
It's Tachomaster. But is he entitled to work on EU regs then?
What type of vehicles are you driving?
An Arctic,
Right. Okay.
a tractor unit, yeah.
Or it sounds to me, just as what Daniel was saying there, that it certainly sounds like it's working time and it's possibly set up under domestic rules.
But does he have the right to work under EU rules, even though he's an EU national, but operating entirely in this country?
It's not about the country per se. It's about the
legislation came from EU. So, yeah.
It's EU 561/2006 are the regulations he's operating under. Okay.
So it's definitely in scope of EU regulations, but yeah. I suspect that possibly your reports from Tachomaster, as Daniel rightly pointed out, are set up as GB domestic rules rather than EU rules.
And if you give Tachomaster are amazing, if you give them a ring, they will help you with anything.
The big Tachomaster.
So I would just ring them and tell them, and they will just talk you through anything.
Okay, thanks.
To remedy that, what you need to do is go into the vehicle. If you go into the vehicle, it'll tell you what regs that vehicle is set up to. It'll probably say domestic rules. You just switch that to EU rules, and then it should stop infringing the driver.
Do I have to physically go to the vehicle, or can it be done online?
Yeah, go open Tachomaster, go into the vehicle, and then it'll tell you what rules it runs to that vehicle, and just switch it to EU regulations as opposed to domestic rules, which is what it's probably set up to.
That's the vehicle.
Right, that seems a bit dodgy to me. I can just shift the goalposts to suit mine under his ends. That seems a bit dubious to me, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, it depends on the type of work that vehicle's doing. We run a mixture of domestic and EU rules because we're passenger transport, and we've got city buses that run under domestic rules and specific drivers for them rules. And we've also got EU regs drivers, so you can run on a mixture of the two. It depends on the type of work that vehicle and driver are doing.
I'll give you a good example. I've just started up 4 weeks ago as an ETM for a local plant hire company, and they've got mixed fleets, Graham, and they've been driving a 3.5 ton flatbed, small flatbed, a vehicle flatbed with a trailer, which is taking them over 3.5 tons, and they've got no tachograph fitted in the vehicle. So I've instructed them to fit a tachograph into the van, which they will do, but that still comes under GB domestic rules. It doesn't come under EU rules. Okay, so what Daniel's stating is quite correct and is all above board, because there are different fleet operations with different types of vehicles. And you can go into the Tachomaster software and you can change the settings in line with the type of vehicle that you've actually got. Okay, so the chap that's doing 11 hours, okay, on a daily basis, bearing in mind, under the rules and regulations, he can actually work 3 15 hours in a fixed week.
But he can't. Yeah, he can work 15 hours from start to finish, but he has to take 4 hours rest in that time. Please be aware of the terminology here, Graham. A rest is from the end of one shift to the start of a new shift. Yeah.
A break is for driving after 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
It's 45 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes. So just be aware of the terminology, because it just confuses matters. It can make it quite confusing.
Yes, yeah. I'm aware of that, but say if he starts at 4 in the morning and finishes at 7 in the evening, which I believe is 15 hours.
Yeah.
Within that time, under domestic rules, he has to take 4 hours of breaks, minimum.
Not that I'm aware of.
For driving, he's allowed to drive for a maximum of
10 or 11
hours? 10 hours. 10 hours.
10 hours a day, several times a week. Several times a week, twice a week.
Twice a week is.
Yeah, and then so he can go up to 10 hours, right? And he can do 4.5 hours driving with his 45-minute break. And you're saying, but the spread over, we're speaking about spread over here, can be up to 15 hours. So he can do his 10 hours driving, but he can do other work as well. Okay. Yeah. And you suggested there was other work in there. So he doesn't need this 4.5 hour break. It can be absence of driving. So, but you want to forget about the breaks, think about the actual driving and other work. They're the two things you need to look at for working time directive. Other work and driving.
The infringements concern total duty time, 11 hours of total duty time. That's combined driving and other work. It could be roughly 50-50.
Yeah, no, it's duty time can be more, whether it's domestic or 561/2006. Either way.
I mean, bearing in mind here, Graham, that a standard day is classified as 13 hours duty time with 11 hours rest. That's your standard 24-hour period. So he's under that at 11 hours, isn't he?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but this is 11 hours work. It doesn't include breaks. He's got to fit breaks into there somewhere. If he's doing mixed driving and other work, at the very minimum, he's got to take a break after 6 hours.
Okay, how long does he have to take after 6 hours?
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Are you saying he's not taking
15 minutes? Depends how much driving he's done.
He's taking it. Well, I could go into Tachomaster and.
It'd be quite handy to see it.
Yeah.
Is that a breach? Is that a breach of the Data Protection Act or what?
Don't show his name.
Don't show his name because it's going on YouTube. I don't want another video popped up on YouTube.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, but I think they're right as well. We used the software with Masternaut called Taco Fresh, and it kept saying the maximum hours was 10 hours, and it wasn't 10 hours, and I ended up stopped using it in the end because although I don't know how many times I changed it, it kept going back to 10 hours duty, which would explain your infringement you're getting there for 11 hours, and that was under GB domestic rules. So I stopped using it in the end because we was using smart analysis as well. So I suspect these guys are right, and that you can work 15 hours in a day, and that is set up for GB domestic rules.
And he's not doing night work, is he?
No.
Because that's where we were having the infringements for the night work, so we had to opt out of that.
Yeah, you can opt out of the 12 to 4.
Yeah.
What was the EU directive again?
561/2006.
561/2006. Great, thanks very much.
Okay.
And I'll chat amongst yourselves, and I'll go into Taco Master.
I've got a question about infringement. So obviously my aim is to, like, I go through as often as the data is updated. So basically the operator updates it once a week in an ideal world. So I go through and I'll speak to the drivers about every infringement, and we're getting a few. But I'm quite shocked by the lack of knowledge from the driver point of view, and I'm finding that a lot of people haven't ever been spoken to about their infringements. They've either had letters that they've just signed, and I've got people who are telling me they've had 30 years experience and they've never been brought up about trying to fit. The biggest one is trying to fit everything into a 24-hour period, and we're getting people going over 13 hours. They've taken their 11 hours off, but they think they're fine, but of course it's, you know, sometimes going over a 24-hour period. So for me, it's trying to teach or trying to get people to understand. Once I'm getting repeat infringements, like, what do you guys do? Because I'm trying to work out a bit of a platform to say, right, one, you know, once you have an informal chat. Number two, if it keeps getting repeated, then we're looking at disciplinary letter, and then further down the line it'll be dismissal. But what are your time scales? Like, do you have like a bit of a platform that you work off to decide at what point you move it on a level?
So what I do, when I took this over, there was quite a few infringements. A lot of drivers were driving over 4.5 hours. They were 6-hour rule. There was a lot of infringements. So what I started doing was issuing a letter of concern, firstly on the first infringement, because I think what was happening before, they was used to getting away with it, no one really managing it, looking at it 24/7 and watching them. Yeah. So what I did, I issued a letter of concern first. I spoke to them first. I issued a letter of concern if it continued, and then I put them on a CPC course. Yeah. Once I put them on a CPC course, and they had to sit 7 hours on the computer in a class, and they soon backed up their ideas. Yeah. They soon backed up their ideas. And we had drivers who were new and they had no idea. They, to be frank, they had no idea about the rules and regulations. They were on a CPC course, and now they're fine. Yeah, I can honestly say that if they get an infringement now, we have a good laugh and joke about it because they never get them anymore.
Yeah, to be honest, I keep an eye on it as well, Martin.
Yes, definitely, and you've got to keep it. As John said, you have to keep it. You've got to be that annoying person in their back here going, hang on a minute, if you've got a print out for that, you've gone over here, you've gone over there. And once they realise that someone's watching them 24/7, essentially, they butt their ideas up.
Yeah.
They really, really do. I say I've probably booked coming up 10 CPC courses for drivers now.
Yeah.
All for drivers' hours, all things like that, because I think they think they can just a couple of minutes here, 4 hours 32. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It does matter. Yeah. 4 hours 30 is the maximum. You should be planning at 4 hours. You should know where you're going to stop. There's no real reason other than an accident or sitting in unexpected traffic due to an accident, not planned roadworks. There's no reason why you should go over that 4.5 hours.
Nia, are you on Taco Master?
Yeah.
On Taco Master, there's a DCRS report.
Yeah.
Which you can go into, and it gives you all the different levels.
That's right. It's a good system, that, John.
Okay, I'll have a look at that. Thank you. I haven't seen that bit. So
then you have to register for it.
Okay. Does it cost?
Probably.
No, I don't think so.
There is a small charge. I think it's 12 pence per driver per month, I believe. Yeah, it's a small charge on it, yeah.
Just a quick question, guys, when we're talking about infringements. Can I just go around the room, and I'll start with Kieran because you're top left on my screen. Roughly what percentage do you think of your infringements are EU, and what percentage do you reckon is working time?
In our situation, it's going to be EU. We don't have many. There are very, very few. There is a company who's one of my clients. They have a restricted license, so I just do some consultancy work for them, and they were having issues with working time.
Yeah.
They had a warehouse, and they were in and out the warehouse. They were doing some driving, and they had all sorts of ideas. That's gone from, say, about they have eight drivers.
Yeah.
And it was 4 or 5, maybe even 6 a week infringements that's gone to 0. Once I started with them, but with my own external transport managers ones, it's 0. I'm just not getting any.
Yeah, I mean, to give you an example, anywhere I've worked and I've gone into for the first time, I've nearly always found there's maybe 20% of all infringements are EU and 75 to 80% are working time. The drivers do not understand working time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be across the board, guys?
I would say the majority of ours, we don't get a lot anymore, but the majority of ours are working time.
Yeah. Which I think, bearing in mind how long the rules have been in place, it's not just a case of drivers not understanding them, it's their managers that are not understanding them either. Because inevitably what happens, and the reason I asked Graham earlier on when you mentioned working time, and I specifically asked the question, how long? I asked that for a reason, because I hear a lot of managers telling their drivers they must have 30 minutes on 6 hours. A lot of managers do that. And I think there lies an inherent problem where the drivers are getting information about working time, which is inaccurate in the first place. What's your views on that, Martin?
Travis Perkins do exactly that. This is the massive arguments I have with my manager, Travis Perkins. They say you've got to have half an hour's break at 6 hours. And I would sit there till I was blue in the face, say, no, you don't. I said the DVSA regulations are above are the regulations. They have their drivers do a half-hour break at 6 hours. They don't do a lot of driving, so anytime they do driving, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. They really do not know what hours they've got to have. And I'd sit there till I was blue in the face of them. One of the many reasons why I did the manager's calls, because I'm trying to explain to them, no, this is the law. I printed out in black and white for DVSA. This is the law. Do not tell people the wrong information.
As managers, I think we have an obligation to make it clear to drivers that there are 2 sets of rules to follow here. There's the rules that are required as a minimum by law, but then there's also company policy. Now, it may well be that company policy is for a driver to have 30 minutes at 6 hours. But managers need to make that clear to the drivers that that's not the legal benchmark. We're going better than the legal benchmark, and we require you under company policy to have 30 minutes, because that's where the confusion comes in.
John, I'll be delivering a transport manager refresher course this week. And
no, I don't need one, Kieran.
I'm not trying to sound honest. Yeah, but day one, the syllabus is the same for both days. Okay, day one we look at keeping your operation compliant, and day 2 is going to be best practice. So we will then move from your 15 minutes, we say 20 minutes. Okay, they would have for break, but I found. What driver is going to go more than 6 hours without a break? He's going to be taking a cup of tea somewhere, right? When he's doing his other work. And I used to see it time and time again when I was in the compliance side, and I'd have people up in front of the commissioners, and the DVSA, or well, it used to be traffic commissioners on staff at the time. They used to say, well, driver such and such, Kieran Goddard here, we've looked at his record, and he had 228 infringements in the past 3 months or something. And you see them go, what? And the infringements were they weren't using the mode switch. And this is where the problem is. The drivers or employees, whichever, are not using that mode switch. Or if they're saying warehouse people who occasionally drive, they're not putting in the manual entries. Yeah. And that tends to be the two main areas that get them into trouble.
Yeah.
You know? So I try and drill this in when I was doing driver CPC training. I don't do much of that now, but I try and drill that in, because you're going to be embarrassed. You're going to be looking, what? Infringements? But that's what it is. And DVSA love it. You know, 200 non-infringements.
I think you're spot on, Kieran. I think with, again, many drivers that have come across, all sizes of vehicles, all weights of vehicles, they have this fear of manual entries, the vast majority of drivers. And I think that's because they are worried sick about what kind of fines they're going to pick up.
I'll be honest, I've asked quite a few people, experienced drivers, and I haven't met one person who knows how to do a manual entry. Like nobody wants to do them. Nobody knows how to do them.
I used to do them every single day. Every single morning, I do a manual entry.
For what then? For like rest?
So I start at 6:30. I wouldn't get in that. I'll be faffing about in the office. I'll be getting me paperwork together. I'll get in that lorry at 7. I then need to do a manual entry to explain what I've been doing from 6:30 till 7. Yeah. By law, that is, they want to record everything that you are doing that on that card, or in some sort of manual entry or some sort of logbook of some description. Manual entry is what DVSA require, and they do ask for. I've had drivers pulled over recently, and they have gone with checking for manual entries, and they're lucky the drivers have done them. And they said yours is an exemplary car, because they find a lot of people do not do manual entries. They get their keys, they go outside and have a fag, and then they start half an hour later, and that's not recorded in their day.
Yeah.
I was saying that, and they pulled us over, and that they said they were checking for that before they'd even started to make sure. Have you done your manual entries? And driver went yes, and like I did, they said it's a very clean car, and there's not many drivers who do manual entries. So
how do you deal with the guys that maybe drive one day a week? For example, one operator I do consultancy for, he's the transport manager, he's the owner of the company, but occasionally, maybe once a week or once a fortnight or whatever, he'll drive. So he's got to keep a record of what's happened in the past. A manual entry for, I don't know, even say 5 days, remembering to your start time, when you take your breaks and things like that. Practically, for, dare I say it, an older guy, it's quite daunting for somebody even to try and do that. So how would you deal with that?
It could record it in a log book, the time that he's not driving.
Right, okay. On a log book,
and then produce both sets of records.
Now, my understanding, use of a logbook, that's acceptable when you're driving under GB domestic, but looking at GB 262, that's the only time you can really use a logbook.
If he's out driving, he uses his digital tachograph card on the day that he's out driving. For the other 4 days, he could record his work in a manual logbook. But also, if you take into account, somebody might be able to correct me here, there are certain numbers of days over a period of, is it 10 weeks or 16 weeks that somebody can drive?
If he's doing less than 4 hours a day, he's extinct. Yeah, he doesn't come under scope. He's out of scope. Okay. If it's less than 4 hours a day, they're out of scope.
Just to pick up on what John said, so I work in the office every day, and if I had to go out driving, I deliberately keep my hours on a sheet, a logbook, every. I mean, if you drive, put your card in that day, you've got to record that week. So I record every single week, the times I do, the breaks I have in my office job.
In your office job, yeah.
Yes, because then I can go out and drive, and that way I've got a log for the DVSA. If I was to get pulled over and they go, well, these are the hours I've been doing. Either that, or I could go and manual entry every single day on the tacho. But
how long would that take?
It would take a little while. I've done it on days off. On my old job, when I used to have a day off, on manual entry in a day off sometimes, and things like that. Or no, tell you, like if I was driving a van, I used to manual entry a van, which obviously wasn't on tacho. But yeah, I just keep a sheet with 30 days on it, start time, end time, break time. and what I was doing that day as well. So just be office work, warehouse.
Okay,
work.
again, just because I like to question things, do you mind if I just try and share I can't even share the screen, but on GV262, do you mind if I just read it to you just now?
Of course.
Okay, so it's on the section under tachograph rules, under common rules, recording other work. So what it says is the record of all other work must either be written manually on a chart, manually on a printout or of the digitachograph, or made using the manual input facility. And then it says, additionally, for days where a driver has been subject to domestic driver's hours rules, a record may also be required under those rules. And that's where it's got a link to the record keeping under your logbook. So that to me would suggest that the only 3 methods for recording other work, if you're not doing domestic hours, would be on an analog chart, on a printout, or through the manual entry function through a tackle. That's is something I've kind of had in my head for, years now. I've questioned RHA, I've questioned FTA now Logistics UK, and also brought it up at on the DVSA new operator seminar. And they all say that it should be done on those 3 methods. But see, try to get drivers or other transport managers to do that, it's near impossible. What they're doing is they're filling out their diaries, which is, I suppose, kind of like a logbook. But in my head, that doesn't comply with what it says in GV262.
I know a lot of drivers who will put in manual entries in effect in a diary, whilst it's not necessarily the right thing to do.
See, my position is the external.
They do it alongside their tachograph for their own benefit, and it's no bad thing, because I also recommend that whenever they have an infringement, so they take a couple of printouts, one for the office, which is not necessarily required, but a lot of operators prefer it that way. But I say to them, have a diary and put that tachograph printout, staple it into your diary for that day as well.
I agree with the diary alongside your tackle records, but what I'm more thinking of when the days you don't drive tackle, now going back to when you were talking about some management. Sorry?
He can just stick it in the logbook, a manual logbook that he's not been driving that day. So he's doing other work.
But that's what I'm saying. Is that one of those accepted 3 methods?
I think so, John. Certainly when I was in compliance, let me go further back when I was a driver, a bus driver. We only kept our records in a diary. It was always in a diary, your actual driving time and your work time, your sign-on time. But I was quite happy. I would actually rather they had it in a diary than loads of bits of paper. Rolls of paper. That would be far better. And any compliance people I worked with used to be VOSA at the time, they'd be quite happy with that too. So long as there was a record. Some of these, the DVSA site, it's very formal, organized, but so long as there's evidence and it's consistent, they'll be happy with that.
That's fair. I was just reluctant to give advice to somebody to say, that you can use a diary or you can use a logbook, if that's not actually the accepted way of doing it. I mean, we talked about managers earlier saying that, you can take a 30 after 6 hours. Now that's false information. I didn't want to go down the route of saying, keep it in a logbook, you're going to be fine with that. And then somebody points me to the regulations or the GV262 and it says, well, actually, there's no mention of a logbook there. So that's what I was trying to avoid.
Logbooks, but I get this, one of the road haulage operator does an awful lot of work on the islands. So as soon as you're on an island, your domestic hours, you're out of scope, but we keep a record on it. They keep it on bits of paper, printouts, which is a bit of a nuisance, but they're not bad. They do a manual entry as well. So,
Daniel, you might be able to answer this for me. Would it be right in saying that there is a facility in Tacomaster for management to put in manual entries?
Yeah.
Yes, there is, yeah.
So what you could do, John, is maybe your tachograph analysis software package, use the manager for your boss. He goes out as one day, you could mark him in on the software as doing other work.
Yeah, I do that.
For the other 4 days.
Yeah, I do that. That's what I do.
I might be around it.
in order to keep full working time records, and we use Tackle-Master for that, I put that information in anyway. He gives me a copy of his diary or a screenshot of his diary, and I input that into Tackle-Master for those days. But I'm more thinking for him at the side of the road, would a diary be an accepted method of recording?
Yeah.
And the consensus is that it might be.
Yeah.
As you say, John, I think with that method, you only have the record, the driver doesn't. But I think what you're saying is probably right. It's not an official method in put into a logbook, but can you imagine if you're a transport manager and you drive and do one day a week, you pull a pocket full of paper charts out, back. It's much more practical to put into a logbook, and I'd be very surprised if you were stopped by DVLA and they'd said that's not acceptable. It's a record. It's easy to go through. It's all in one place. And me personally, I'm more than happy to do that. And I actually do that. I've got my own logbook. I carry it with my digital tachograph card, and I'll give it to the DVLA if I'm pulled at the roadside.
Yeah, so I got pulled over once as a manager now, and I showed them my timesheet or logbook, and they was fine with that.
Right, good. That's what I wanted to
Any
hear.
problems at all? I mean, the only thing with the logbook is you can make the times up, couldn't you? That's the only thing. There's no guarantee that the times I've written there's true.
A storybook, as we call it.
Yeah, exactly. I could make that up every single day.
So you only have to have that for the week that you drive then, because I'll drive once a month. So
I personally do it for every day, every single day of every week, simply because I don't know where I'm going to go out. Yeah. Someone will clarify, if you do drive that a day in that week, you need to have that whole week recorded.
Yeah,
you need the previous 28 days if you drive on DU regs.
Yeah.
So just carry that day and the previous 28 as a minimum if you're going out driving.
Fab, thank you.
This one's for you, Nia. It comes on from this subject, and I mentioned it, and I couldn't remember the legislation that covers it, but it's the occasional driving side of things. So you can drive up to a certain number of times over a certain period. I think it's something like 16 weeks. And you then become exempt from all the record keeping. It's worth checking out. I don't know the exact. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but it's the occasional driving hours rules. Okay. Have a wee look at it, and that'll give you some information in there as well.
Oh, thank you. I haven't heard of that one.
We're starting to do less than 4 hours a week, I thought, or something.
What I do, John, once a year, except for last year, once a year I would drive a coach, just voluntary. Take a church group way down to Preston and then back up same day. But I worked the old-fashioned way. Even though I was working on digital tachograph, I kept my envelopes with my charts in it, and I would just have it marked out in the front on the envelopes, other work or rest day, you know. I would have that listed out just in case, and I would have the 4 of them there plus the current week, and that was it. Just show it to them. I've not been stopped, but I would just play it safe.
I've just Googled it, and it says here, occasional drivers are workers who only occasionally work within the scope of the EU Drivers' Hour rules, i.e. 10 days or less within scope of the EU Drivers' Hours regulation in a period that is shorter than 26 weeks. So you can drive for 10 days in a period of 6 months. And you then become exempt for the record keeping side of things.
Yeah. The only thing is, John, and again, I'm on from my own compliance experience. You do that, and you say, "Is this person at it?" Let's have a look at some other things. So that's why I kept all these other charts, just to get them off my back in case.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the reason I say that is because you've got to remember the DVSA staff aren't exactly up to scratch in a lot of these regulations either.
No.
Yep. It tends to be phone calls to different people and the experts on it. Yeah. So.
Oh, thank you.
Listen, everybody, I'll have to get going now. I've promised my wife I would do something just now, so we're going to go out and get some shopping. So lovely speaking to you all. Okay.
Thanks for attending. Thanks for coming, Kieran.
See you all.
Take care
now. Bye now. Bye.
So, is there anything else anyone else wanting to discuss?
I'd like to have a quick poll to see what people's thoughts are on
who should take responsibility for CPC training. Now, if I could give you my thoughts first, and then if we could maybe get a wee bit of a chat going about it. Now, if I'm working in the office and Martin, you as my boss, say to me, John, I want you to go on a fire marshal's course. And I say, okay, boss. So you book the course, you pay for it, you send me on it. Okay. Now, with CPC driver training, it's slightly different because there's all this, the CPC and the license is the driver's responsibility. So a lot of operators will say that their drivers pay for their own CPC training. And my view is the opposite of that. My view is that the operator should take control of CPC training, book it, pay for it, and that way they've got complete and utter control of who does what when.
Yeah.
What's other guys' feelings?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would agree with that. But I've always had that in my previous job with the companies paid for my CPC.
Yeah.
I look after 4 small companies, and the drivers all have to get their own CPC, pay for their own training. I previously worked, before I went into external transport, the DHL for 27 years. DHL, we always paid for the drivers.
Yeah.
It seems the smaller companies, the drivers have to pay for their own.
Which actually, when you look at it, let's say we're a smaller operator with 5 drivers, and let's say one of these drivers fails to complete his CPC on time, and therefore that puts you down a driver. That's your capability as an operator down by 20% straight away.
Yeah.
Now the financial cost to the company is 300 quid on average, spread over 5 years. Okay, so it's costing the operator 60 quid per head per annum, and guess what? It's all tax deductible. Versus the risk of you losing a contract because 20% of your drivers haven't got their CPC training sorted out.
I think also if the company is paying for it, then they can choose what you go on. So if you've got a driver who's having issues with hours, then you can put them on a driver hour CPC. If they've got a problem with load restraint or a concern there, you can put them on, you can kind of specialize it with what the driver needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Martin, I know your business, you've got a warehouse, you've got forklifts, so you take on a forklift operator for your warehouse. I'll bet you bottom dollar he doesn't have to pay for his refresher course for forklifts.
Saying that, I've actually got 3 people on forklifts tomorrow, actually. Refresher courses tomorrow for Moffats. No, we pay for it all. Because, like you say, if one of their licenses run out on that Moffat, doesn't mean they're not capable. They go to a building site and they look for their card and their card's out of date. That's that job gone. That job's failed, and that job will guarantee be worth more money than that day's training for each of them combined together. If we were to allow drivers to book their own Moffat train, forklift training, whatever it may be, they would forget. They would run out. They wouldn't want to pay for it, and then it'll be all up in arms when it's run out and we're on a site and we can't unload. So yeah, definitely we pay for all our forklifts, Moffats, you name it, we'll pay for it, because it's the risk of not having it is just too much. We'd lose too much money.
What's everybody else's view, John?
Yeah, I'm similar to John Leon there. I've worked for bigger companies in the past as internal transport manager, and CPC has been paid for by the company and arranged by the company. But now I'm external transport manager for smaller companies, and that's the way it's going. As the drivers are and paying for their own. There's one in particular. He usually does it maybe on a Saturday or something. He gets paid his shift for the training, but he actually does have to pay for the training himself. And from my point of view, so long as he's trained, he can drive. If he doesn't have it, he doesn't drive, which then impacts the operator, and that's up to the operator to accept that. But that's how it is. The smaller companies are drivers are paying for it.
Are these employed drivers? Are they for each small operator? Are they actually PAY employed drivers?
Yeah, for these ones, yeah.
What about you, Daniel? What's your experience in this?
At Tetley's, we pay, but what we do, we pay for one course every year. So if drivers have been with us a lot of years, they'll always be have enough courses under the belt. If someone comes to us and they're going to run out of CPC next year and they've done nothing, we'll get them one course because they've been with us for the year, but they'll have to pay for their own 4 after that.
Yeah.
So it encourages people to stay with us, and then that do it's all paid for.
Yeah. What about yourself, Graham?
The question is, what happens when you have a mixed workforce, part full-time, part agency? I presume the agency drivers pay for their own, and the full-timers get paid for.
Well, again, agencies will work it differently. Some agencies will actually pay their agency driver CPC for them to attract them onto their books. I've come across that with quite a few examples. HR Go down here in the south is one particular example. But again, it should be the agency's responsibility to make sure that any driver that they're providing to an operator does have the appropriate license categories and qualifications.
Okay.
And, you know, I make it a point of saying to them, I want to see evidence that these guys, you've done the correct license checks, eyesight checks, and also check their CPC before they can send me an agency driver.
Yep. Sounds good. Yep.
Yeah.
Does anyone have self-employed drivers then? That's supposed to be stopping soon.
We had a few. They've all had to go PAY. You know, IR35 came in, and we've had to put a little. Well, I'm just trying to think how many percentage.
Is that only in England though? I don't think that applies in Wales.
Not sure. Certainly.
As far as I'm aware, that's across the board from HMRC.
I thought it was across the board as well, to be fair.
I might have to do some Googling.
Even myself as a single director limited company, I was subject to having to evidence the fact that I can operate outside of IR35 to 2 of my major contractors, DECRA and DriveTech, and I had to fill in this long questionnaire. And part of that is how long you're working for the contractors. Have you only got one contractor, or have you got multiple customers? But one of the big things with the drivers and limited company drivers with IR35 is whether they use their own equipment or not. And again, 9 out of 10 times drivers are tipping up as a limited driver and they're using the company's equipment. And it's fortunately for me, I can stay as I am. I'm out with IR35, but this is having a major impact in the industry at the moment. IR35.
If you go onto the .gov website, Naya,
there
is a check employment status for tax.
Yeah,
I'd recommend you do that for your employees and answer it as you think they should answer it, and it'll tell you if they should be on your books through PAYE or self-employed.
What was that website, sorry?
It's on the .gov. If you just search check employment status for tax, and then you can just run a check through there, and it'll tell you at the end of it whether they should be paid through PAYE or self-employed. But the way I understand it is we shouldn't be using self-employed drivers anymore.
Okay. I thought it was coming in. I didn't think it was in yet.
No, it's already in. I mean, do your drivers work anywhere else?
Some of them will, some of them won't. To be fair, it's the boss that will do this. So hopefully he's done this. But anyway,
I mean, if they don't work anywhere else and they are told when to come in, then they'll fall under IR35.
Yeah, because you've got to be employed, but you've got to have more than one client.
More than one place of work, not dictated to when you're coming and when you're going, which drivers are.
Using your own equipment.
Yeah, use your own equipment again, which they're not going to drive their own lorry, are they? If like I say, if they come to work for you Monday, Friday, and that you tell them to come in at 7, they turn up at 7, then they are technically employed.
Yeah, perfect.
And they're entitled to 4 weeks holiday, pension, and to pay the correct tax.
Yeah, fab. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you very much.
The other thing to maybe take into consideration here, Nia, is also the impact that IR35 is having from the traffic commissioner's point of view. The traffic commissioners reportedly are stating that an operator's license could be under threat if they continue to use self-employed drivers.
I say last month we had Scott Bell from Backhouse Jones. That's exactly what he said. He said if you use self-employed drivers, regardless of the law, the traffic commissioner does not like it, and they will most likely. They'll give you a chance to sort it out, and if not, they'll suspend or curtail your license.
Fab. Okay,
that was coming direct from the solicitor who deals with public inquiries.
Yeah, no. I knew it was coming. It's been coming for a while, hasn't it? But yeah, I'll check.
It's been delayed and sorts, and as John said, it has made a massive impact into the market. Agencies can't find drivers. I can't get a driver on an agency for love or money. The price of drivers now,
rates are going up.
£25 an hour.
Wow.
For an agency,
rates
and it gets to the point where there's no, because the price of the driver's gone up, but the job hasn't gone up.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where you think, well, actually, I'm not making any money on that job now.
Wow.
You know, we end up. There's been times before when we've just not been able to do a job. So we cannot, not that we can't pay for. We cannot get an agency driver. Someone goes sick, and you want to get an agency driver, especially in the southeast of England at the moment. You'll be lucky to find one. Yeah. You really will.
I don't. We're down in Pembrokeshire, so West Wales, and there's hardly any anyway.
Yeah, I mean we use, on the rare occasion we've had agencies which will be emailing us. We've got a driver tomorrow. Can you use him? Now they can't even get the drivers. A lot of drivers have decided they're not going to work no more. They're going to have some time off. They're going to see how the market goes and how the industry goes, and the wages have definitely gone up for agency staff.
Wow.
Does anyone keep up with their drink tests, alcohol tests, and drug testing in their companies? Does everyone do all that today?
I've done a little bit of research on it, Martin, because at one stage I was thinking it might be a good service as an external consultant to be able to provide companies. You can get machines at relatively low cost for testing alcohol. But then I thought about it, I would need to be on somebody's doorstep at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not a morning person.
The reason why I say it, is when I did the Force Bronze accreditation, our machine was out of date and needed recalibrating. And one evening we had a driver who was over. Someone phoned me, and another driver goes, "I think this driver's had a drink." And I went down to where he picked the lot, and he was over the limit.
Wow.
We caught him. Well, I caught them that because I was checking it, and ever since then I've meticulously checked people's drugs to make sure we're not caught out like that again. Obviously, the driver was dismissed on the spot for it, pending investigation. But the point is, it does happen. And had we not had that breathalyzer kit, and had we not had the procedures in place, he may have been driving a 40 footer. I mean, he wasn't majorly over the limit. He wasn't drunk to look at him, but he was over the limit.
So you do that for every driver that goes out, or do you just
No. I do it randomly. I do it completely randomly. If I see a driver, I'll breathalyze them. Or we've got these little drugs kits that we use now. There's no one in particular I choose. I'll just choose a few, 1 a week, 2 a week, something like that, completely at random. Usually because we have the night drivers as well. So usually, like John says, first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Monday mornings, especially. Yeah. And after paydays as well, especially after there, because everyone goes out on a payday, they have a few beers, they come back in Monday morning, they could well be over the limit.
Do you know what I'm struggling with? Like all these like policies that would be amazing to put in place, and I find it quite overwhelming, the amount of it. Like there's nowhere to stop, is there? You could, you just keep going with all these improvements, but what I'm coming up against at the minute, so I'm just focusing on the infringements and things like that, the obvious things at the minute, and once they're sorted. But the drivers, there's massive resistance from drivers just for even going through their infringements records. Like, I can't imagine saying, right, I'm going to give you an alcohol test now, because I can, half of them will just tell me to bugger off and just jump in the car and go home. I don't know if it's just around here or because it's small companies, but there's a lot of small hauliers around here, and they literally, you know, it's a hobby for these guys, you know. I know it's their well-being, but a livelihood, but they are not used to these policies, and I'm coming across as very strict apparently compared to what most people have been dealt with. But like, do you get any resistance? I guess it's easier in a big company, you expect these sort of policies, but is there any resistance?
I would say if you don't want to take an alcohol test on the spot, then you can go home now. You know, and you can find another job. Well, because if that driver went out and killed someone or had an accident with someone, the repercussions for you.
Yeah, I agree. And it's the reason why they refuse it is not because they, you know, you can almost guarantee it wouldn't be because they have an issue with it. It's the fact that they are being asked to do something they don't want to do, and it comes back to this attitude thing. And I've worked in quite a few big companies, and you'd be expected to take them. You work in a big company, you expect these policies, but these smaller hauliers, you know, they literally just jump in the truck and off you go, do your job. That's all they're there for. You know, these other bits that come with it, in their eyes, is unnecessary.
Unfortunately, Nia, that's a typical driver.
Yeah.
if they're not getting paid extra to do it, they don't want to do it. And again, bearing in mind it's your good repute that's on the line.
Yeah, and that's what keeps me pushing through, to be honest. But is it something that you guys see then, or I'm just wondering if it is a small, because it's, you know, it's a smaller area here. What I do worry, and especially, you know, the director is a driver himself, and he's been driving for a few years. He's only 25, but he's got quite a bit of experience. He obviously thinks from a driver's point of view. So if I'm putting these policies forward, he's obviously thinking, well, the drivers aren't going to like that. And obviously I'm going to push against him, but there is that mentality of, do we really need it? And obviously, as you say, it is my repute, and if I want to do it, I'll do it. But
these policies aren't what you're specifying. These policies, you're not being someone who's causing problems. These are required by the traffic commissioner.
Yeah.
The traffic commissioner expects you, as a qualified transport manager and namely operator's license, to carry out these compliance checks.
Yeah, good point.
Whether he's the driver or the director, he has responsibility as a director of that company to ensure that his staff are not going out over the limit, intoxicated through drugs, alcohol, and actually can see eyesight checks as well. Can actually see in front of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And
if you're not doing, like I said, the eyesight check, if you don't do an eyesight check and someone has an accident, they'll come straight into the office, they'll do an investigation, they'll find that you've not done eyesight checks. Something as simple as that, and then it'll be your head on the chopping block as well.
Guys, I need to depart, sorry.
All right, John.
Thank you, John.
Yes, guys, thank you.
Bye.
See you later, bye.
What I would say, a lot of these policies.
The other thing I could suggest here is
give up.
Is between yourself and the operator or the owner of the business, get him involved, agree to get a policy in place, and then get the support of the operator to push it through. That's the important thing, because if you get him to deliver the news that they're going to be subject to whatever test you want to put them through, it'll probably come better from him than it would from you.
See, he's using me. It's interesting you say that, because he's the planner as well. So he's using me as I'm the bossy one. I'm the one with the horrible rules, which I quite happy to do. So I can't. He's a nice guy who's begging the guys to do the work, and then I'm the one who comes in with the horrible rules. But yeah, I've actually I've got acquired a For's bronze folder, so I'm working through that to get ideas for policies, and I took that. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and I took it into him and I showed him, and he just looked at it. He's like, that scares me, I don't want anything to do with that, in a funny sort of way. But I said, that's fine, I will do it all. I will run by you the ones that I think I need clarity on, but at the end of the day, he will support me on it, but he doesn't want to look at the detail of it. But I guess as long as I've got his support on that, then he's going to follow it through. It's the paperwork side, and that's why he's employed me. Really, he's more than capable.
I think if you go by the forged bronze policies, I think it's 17 policies. I think it is, isn't it? I think that you'll be pretty close to what you should be.
Yeah, that's
health and safety policies, all your risk assessments, your license checks, your drugs checks, your routing, all that sort of stuff. I think you'll be pretty much there if you follow that forged bronze.
It's a bit of a benchmark, really. It's quite interesting to see. A lot of it we are doing, like the eyesight checks. No, we're not doing that at the minute. So, like, is that just literally, you would just meet the driver the first time and you would literally say, can you see that, read that number plate over there 20 meters away? And
yeah, I'll do that as part of the employment process. So when they come in, you want to make sure they can actually read a number plate. What is it 20 feet or 20 meters? I think it's 20 meters.
20 meters.
Then they can read that number plate, and then I would personally, I think it's every 6 months I check them.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Unless for whatever reason they have an accident, for example, I would generally check their eyesight again after an accident. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of things to do, and they do sort of get on top of you a little bit, and
it's a bit overwhelming sometimes.
But once you get on top of it, it all just becomes very natural.
Yeah.
And very quick. It takes 5 minutes to do an eyesight check. It takes 5 minutes to do a drugs test. It's not a massive issue. But when you're trying to put everything in place at once, that's when you get a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You can't.
Guys and gals, I'm just going to interrupt and say I'm off. I've got things I need to catch up on. Thank you very much for having me, and no doubt we will come across each other again sometime.
Most definitely, John. Thanks for coming.
Hey, John.
See you later, guys and gals. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'd just say that it's very overwhelming at first when you go into a company who doesn't have the policies and procedures in place, especially when you've come from a company who has had it in place. Over time, you sort of build up. Like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't change everything overnight. It's the constant work, and that never give up. Ever give up. With it. And you will get there. I mean, the company I work for now had very little in place, and I come in from I say it was class 1 driver, but very much from the compliance side, and I've taken me 18 months to really, really get down to the point where we are 10 times better than we was when I started.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Long old road, but it's
very much so. Very much so.
I think the key now is to look to automate systems, like you said. Obviously, alcohol testing. There's devices out there that you can link to the ignition barrel. We've got a couple of our vehicles, alcohol devices. It's linked to ignition barrel. The vehicle will not start unless a driver blows a negative test into that. You can automate that. Downloading your vehicles, if you use Tachomaster, like we do, there's the dot device. It remote downloads vehicles and driver cards. Again, automation. It frees you up to do other things. So whatever you're doing, just look at ways to automate your systems. There's lots of things out there for us.
I would completely. Oh, done.
No, I was just going to say, I was having real trouble getting the defect, getting visibility of the defects book. So we have automated that, and we've now using pre-drive, which is linked to Tachomaster, and that's really handy. So yeah, good idea. I will have a look at other ways to automate things.
So I'd highly recommend the remote downloads of the tacho head and a tacho card. That saves you so much stress. If you've got, say, like we've got 30 odd drivers, that saves you so much stress. It's worth the money and the time 3 times over, for example. The stress involved in trying to make sure drivers download his cards so that you can check his infringements, you can keep up to date with him. I mean, we've just started with Webfleet, which is TomTom. And disc check, it's all sort of all together, and it downloads it daily, and it's just a weight off my mind. It really is.
I think with all these, like in an ideal world, they are brilliant. But like this operator, he's just started. I don't want to blow him away with too many costs.
No, definitely.
And that remote download is a little bit pricier than the others. But it's probably something to work towards.
I mean, if you've only got a fleet of 5, you don't really need that.
To be fair, it's up to him anyway, because he's the one who downloads them for me. So
I mean, it's
to stop doing it, you can pay for it.
Download 5 vehicles and 5 cards. I'm sure that's not too much of a headache. When you start getting 20, 25 vehicles, they run at night time, they run at weekends. You're not there 24/7. That's really when you could do with it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Anything else? Anyone else? Or are we done for this evening?
Good.
I think.
Well, guys, thank you very much for coming and giving your opinions. I say this is only the fifth one. Unfortunately, last month's one we couldn't put online with the solicitor simply because some of the comments that were made from people in the audience and the spectators per se and the people talking, that if certain people were to hear them, should we say, they wouldn't be best pleased.
Okay.
So yeah, but if the solicitor one was absolutely brilliant. I mean, we spoke about bridge strikes essentially, and I didn't have a bridge strike policy. I would never dream of it in a bridge. I'd know what height my trailer is and things, but it come across that other people wouldn't. So I implemented a bridge strike policy. Brake testing, depending on what traffic commissioner area you're in. We're in the southeast, and our traffic commissioner recommends, doesn't recommend, tells us that we have to have loaded brake tests every single PMI, which now we've had to buy blocks for on the back of that. And the third one he discussed was self-employed drivers, which essentially is what we discussed this evening. Sorry, is that they're not acceptable in the eyes of the traffic commissioner. Yeah, so it was an extremely good talk. So everyone's obviously more than welcome to join up to as many as they want. The more people we get, the better talks we have, and I think this one's been quite a good one.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much. It's been
no problem. It's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Hopefully see you again next month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Cheers. Bye.